It's quite a gray area. You're not exactly a member of the family, but you're not exactly a worker. So finding this balance between your independence and being with and taking a part of all of your family activities takes time. Hey Au Pairs, it's Edwina. So today I wanted to broach the subject of what it is like to be a part of your family as an au pair. It's something that we don't really talk about. If I were to put myself back in my au pair shoes right before leaving, I ask myself questions like, how often should I Skype with my family? Am I annoying them? How do I surmount difficult conversations and awkward moments? Because trust me and trust all the au pairs in the APOP community, you're gonna have a little bit of awkwardness with your family. It's totally normal and you are not alone. In today's video, I wanted to talk about how often you should Skype with your family before you leave, how often you should spend time with them, what or when you should be outside of your host family's house, and when you should be spending time with them, and how you can have a better relationship with your family and with your host kids in general. So the first topic is before you even leave. I remember I Skyped with my family maybe once. We wrote up a contract and we were mostly in contact over email, but it was definitely a question on my mind, like, do they want to know what's going on in my life, what I'm doing over the summer, what I'm doing over the school year? Because when I was an au pair, I had finished my first year of university and I was going to do it for a year-long kind of a gap year between my first and second year of university. And I didn't know how much or how little they wanted to know. The answer is, I don't think you can ever over communicate with your family. They're going to be your family. They are gonna want to invest in getting to know who you are, why you're leaving your country and coming to watch their kids. Don't be afraid about oversharing. And if you want numbers, I personally would Skype with my family 3-4 times before I even left within the course of about 3 months. And that was to discuss the contract, and then it was to keep them updated about the visa process, and then I met them when I met their kids on a Skype call, and then my last Skype call, it was probably to discuss the actual arrival and my departure before I left, just to see if I had any last questions. I also updated them over email, especially because the visa process takes a long time, there's lots of details, so I was constantly sending emails to my family, updating them on the next steps and where I was. Don't be afraid to contact your host family. As long as you're getting in touch by email or Skype once a week in the months while you're departing, I would say that that's fair. And if you feel that you have nothing to share, get to know them, ask them questions. What are they doing? What are the activities that the kids are up to? What are they doing over the summer? And all that jazz. If you want more questions, we have a few videos on our YouTube channel where we talk about the exact Skype questions that you can ask, and you can also prepare for what kind of gifts and what kind of questions you should ask your host kids. So definitely check that out. Part 2 of this video is the tricky part. It's when you arrive. How do you manage a relationship with your host kids and with your host family? It's weird, and I'm gonna talk about the do's and kind of don'ts. You are in a new city. I mean, let's get real. It's really exciting to be abroad. I remember when I got to Paris, I felt like I was living in a dream. It had been my dream for so long to live abroad, to learn a different language, to learn about a different culture. So when I finally got there, I just loved being outside of my apartment and having time to explore my city. But you have to remember that you are there for a job and your families are counting on you. Something that I suggest often to au pairs is that take those especially that first month, but that first like 1 to 3 months to invest in your host family and your relationship with your host kids. After that time, after they see that you've really made an effort to get to know them, get to spend time with them, go to the movies with them, if they invite you to go to the countryside with them, take advantage of that, because that's really where you're going to get to learn about them and they're going to be able to learn about you. After that, you can invest in your independent life outside of your host family, but keep in mind that once that first 3 months pass, you're not going to be able to make a new first impression, and first impressions are so important. On a day-to-day basis, what that means is not only spending time with the kids and playing as many games with them as possible, getting to know what games they like, getting to know what they don't like, but also eating with your family. Everyone's family's dynamic is very different. Sometimes, especially if you're living in a big city, your host parents aren't going to be able to eat with you because they're still at work. But if you're living with the family, definitely take time to eat with them at the table 3 times a week. If you have your bedroom in the apartment, make sure you're not spending all of your time in your bedroom. Some of the cheats that I've used is I would take a book and go in the common space and read it. I'm the type of person that actually can't read in a space that has lots of distractions, so I wasn't actually reading, but I was just getting used to the fact that I was living in someone else's space and sharing that space with them. I think one of the hardest things about being an au pair is feeling like you have to be your best self all the time, but allow yourself and give yourself the space to be natural and to do nothing and to say nothing, but to still be in the common space. Later on in the year, you can spend all the time you want outside of your house, outside or inside your bedroom watching Netflix. I totally feel you. I completely did that. That's totally normal. But I'm just saying the first couple months are the most important. And if you want to have the best experience possible and the best rapport with your host family, get out there and force yourself to interact with them. Force yourself to be in the common spaces. Ask questions, have them ask questions, and really put in the energy. The last topic I wanted to talk about in this video is difficult conversations that you're going to have with your host family. Because take it from someone who rematched, I pretty much know all the ins and outs of difficult conversations with your host family. Point blank, it sucks. Being in a weird situation where you're living with someone who's kind of your boss, but they're your family as well, is weird all around. It's just weird. The number one solution to avoiding and to surmounting these awkward moments is communication. And I've learned this with time, and this is a lesson that comes with time, but I'm telling you this to avoid the difficulties that I went through as an au pair, because there were lots of things that I should have been more clear about, that I had going on in my head, that I could have simply just communicated to make things a lot easier for me and for my host family. For example, my host parents were both entrepreneurs when I was an au pair, and they were really busy. So a few weeks, almost every week, if I'm going to be honest, they would forget to pay me. I would complain, and instead of going to them directly and saying, hey, you didn't give me my 90 euros this week, could I get that? It took some time, but once I finally got used to asserting myself and saying, hey, I need my money, they were so fine with it. They totally were like embarrassed that they even forgot. You have to realize that there's nothing wrong with asking for certain things, whether that's discipline and communicating that you feel like your host kids aren't treating you the way you should, getting paid. You have to communicate. You can't fault your host parents for not being able to read your mind. And you have to give them time to make up for and try to fix whatever it is that's not going right for you. But if you haven't communicated your side of things in the best and nicest way that you possibly can, then you can't really complain. And I know that sounds super, super harsh, but it's true. The biggest mistake that I probably have made when I was an au pair is that I used my au pair friends to bounce ideas off of, and I became one big complaining bubble. And I would complain instead of communicate and try to solve my problems. So my advice to you is, yes, complain, yes, vent, because that is healthy and that helps mentally with your mental health as well, finding your community and venting about things that are going on, because your kids and your host family are going to drive you insane. That's just a part of the job. But if it's a bigger thing, like not getting paid and those things that I mentioned, you need to do something about it, act upon it, and communicate. So that's all today. I am here for you always. You can always check out our website, Au Pair Au Pairs, for more advice and tips and tools to help you during your au pair year. Make sure that you're focusing on the positive as much as you're focusing on the negative, and you're really taking advantage of this unique experience. I will see you in the next video. Ciao, have a good day. Bye.